episode 186, which is a Girl Take the Lead soundbite. And that's a shorter episode, which may be a bit more about a topic we've covered, like our episode today, or quick inspiration. And I'm your host, Yo Canny. We've been covering stories about fearless leadership this whole month. And perhaps like you, I have been intrigued by the political landscape, seeing Kamala Harris take charge of her presidential campaign in a way one can only describe as fearless. So I dug in and found us some sources, like the book Kamala's Way by Dan Morain, that can help us identify elements we've been covering in this podcast to understand her leadership style. Elements like her early inspirations, and then masculine skills like competition, determination, and then feminine skills like resilience, empathy, inclusivity. I want to give a shout out to our previous guest, Andrea Main DeWitt, who outlined these traits for us in her book. And I'll have a link to that episode if you'd like to listen to it. Here you go. Enjoy the listen. So let's just say you were given a job description for the position of the President of the United States. Would you want to interview? It's a pretty crazy time, right? To want to be president? There's just a few challenges, like continuing U.S. economic recovery, managing inflation, a mental health crisis, a global climate crisis, racial and gender inequality, immigration reform, political polarizations, U.S. China rivalry, Ukraine Russia tensions, the Middle East hotbed, cybersecurity and national security, North Korea's nuclear ambitions, Europe's energy crisis and political stability, and, oh yeah, the African military conflicts. And your life will be under scrutiny 24/7 on a global level. Would you take the job? I know I wouldn't, but thank God someone is willing. You have to be one fearless lady to do so. So, who is this daring woman, Kamala? Point one, I think. She was groomed from birth. Kamala's mom was 26-year-old Indian immigrant when she was born at Kaiser in Oakland in 1964. As a little girl, she grew up to be tough, sharp-witted, exacting, hardworking, smart, multi-layered, and multicultural. Morain's book was written in 2021, so Kamala would have just become VP after Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. She is the United States' first female vice president, the highest ranking female elected official in U.S. history, and the first African American and the first Asian American vice president. She is described as her mother's daughter. Her mother, Shyamala Goblin Harris, died in 2009 and was the greatest inspiration in her life. And Kamala often shares inspirational quotes from her, one being, quote, "You may be the first to do things, but make sure you are not the last." One post on Instagram Kamala made during Women's History Month in 2020 was, "She taught my sister Maya and me the importance of hard work and to believe in our power to right what is wrong." I was struck by the fact that Kamala was inspired by her mother. In her episode 60, we looked at the book Woman and Leadership by Julia Gillard, former PM of Australia, and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Nigeria's finance minister, and is now Director General of the World Health Organization. In their book, they spoke to 8 of the world's most powerful women, one including Hillary Clinton, and most indicated a strong tie to their fathers. So what did Kamala's mom do to lay a foundation for her that she was so inspirational. Here's a little about her mom. Her mom stood a little taller than 5 feet. She was the eldest of 4 children of a senior civil servant in a family of high achievers. In a nation that gained its independence from Britain in 1947, 9 years before she was born, she was raised in a household where political activism and civic leadership came naturally. She had a keen political consciousness and was conscious of history, conscious of struggle, and conscious of inequities. Kamala said this about her mom. She was born with a sense of justice imprinted on her soul. In 1958, she was 19 when she graduated with a degree in home science in New Delhi and then went to Berkeley in search of a higher and more meaningful education. She studied nutrition and endocrinology and received her PhD. She was recognized for her research in breast cancer and published over 100 research papers. In 1962, Shyamala attended a gathering of Black students where the speaker was a young graduate student from Jamaica, Donald Jasper Harris, who was studying economics. He immigrated from Jamaica in 1961, also arriving at Berkeley for an education. He was a bit of a radical, and Shyamala came up to him after his lecture, charmed him. They spoke, and they met a few more times and became married in 1963. Kamala Devi was born in 1964 and her sister Maya Lakshmi 2 years later. Devi is the Hindu mother goddess, and Lakshmi is the lotus goddess of wealth, beauty, and good fortune. Shyamala told the LA Times she gave her daughters names derived from Indian mythology to help preserve their cultural identity and said, quote, a culture that worships goddesses produces strong women. In the mid to late 1960s, both parents were active in the civil rights movement, with Kamala wheeled to demonstrations in a stroller. She tells the family tale that on one occasion, as she was fussing in the stroller, her mother asked Kamala what she wanted, and she replied, feed them. And for those of you who don't know the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s and 70s, Berkeley was a hub of political activism, intellectual fermentation, and cultural revolution. And it was playing a pivotal role in shaping the broader countercultural and social movements of the time. During that time, Berkeley was defined by the free speech movement, anti-Vietnam War protests, civil rights, and social justice. And Berkeley was one of the first cities to integrate its schools, and the broader fight for racial justice was a significant part of the political consciousness. Organizations like the Black Panther Party, which was founded in nearby Oakland, also had a significant influence. And then there was the countercultural and hippie movement. The city is near San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury, the epicenter of the Summer of Love, especially in 1967. And Berkeley shared in the cultural shift towards peace, love, communal living, experimentation with drugs like LSD. The university, Telegraph Avenue, and People's Park became gathering places for those involved in the countercultural. So, what about her dad? Donald Harris's career was in academia. He spent time at Berkeley, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Northwestern University, the University of Wisconsin, and then in 1972 at Stanford. He was the first Black economist to achieve tenure in the Stanford Economics Department, and he stayed there until 1998 when he retired from teaching. Shyamala and David separated in 1969 when Kamala was 5. They filed for divorce in 1972. Shyamala gained physical custody. Kamala said this in 2003: "My father is a good guy, but we are not close. He was not included in the official biography on the California Attorney General's website, while her mother was." Hmm. So, what foundation did mom lay? Mom had a keen sense she was raising a Black daughter and took her to a rainbow sign, a Black cultural center in Berkeley, where she met the likes of Shirley Chisholm, the New York Congresswoman and first Black presidential candidate, jazz singer, musician, and civil rights leader Nina Simone, and poet Maya Angelou. Can you imagine being with these amazing women? How inspiring could that have been? During her teenage years, you've probably heard about her friend Wanda Kagan, who inspired Kamala to become a prosecutor, largely because of what happened to Wanda. She lived with the Harris family and was welcomed as a member of the family to escape abuse that was occurring in Wanda's home. Running for president this year is not Kamala's first rodeo. In 2019, you may remember, she was on stage with Joe Biden and was quoted to have said, "I would like to speak on the issue of race." At the time, she was a first term senator from California. And as they were discussing block busing to desegregated public schools, Harris called that hurtful and said this: "You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me." Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Morain says this in his book. Harris entered the presidential race fully intending to win. To do that, she had to defeat the frontrunner, Biden. That she fell short can be attributed to missteps by her and by factors beyond her control. But though her campaign sputtered and halted before the first votes were cast, Harris left a big impression. Something about her always cuts through, and he calls that Kamala Harris way. At Howard University, she fit in, having grown up in Berkeley and Oakland. Here's a great passage from her book, The Truths We Hold. "On any given day, you could stand in the middle of the yard at Howard and see on her right young dancers practicing their steps or musicians playing instruments. You could look to your left, and there were briefcase toting students strolling out of the business school, and medical students in their white coats heading back to the lab. Groups of students might be in a circle of laughter or locked in deep discussion. That was the beauty of Howard. Every signal told students that we could be anything, that we were young, gifted, and Black, and we shouldn't let anything get in the way of our success." Huh. Can we get another whoa?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there's more. There's a chapter about the comparison of Harris and Obama. Both were described as biracial, smart, and attractive, both accomplished attorneys, and both reflective of the new face of the Democratic Party, if not the nation itself. When Harris ran for president, a Politico reporter asked her about carrying on Obama's legacy, and she told the reporter, "I have my own legacy."
Oh, yeah.
Harris recounted in 2018 New York Times op-ed an incident about her mother being hospitalized near the end of her life. Quote, "For as long as I could remember, my mother loved to watch the news and read the newspapers. When Maya and I were kids, she'd insist we'd sit down in front of Walter Cronkite each night before dinner. But suddenly, She had no interest. Her mighty brain decided it had had enough. She still had room for us, though. I remember that I had just entered the race for California Attorney General, and she asked me how it was going. And she said, Mommy, these guys are saying they're going to kick my ass. I told her. She rolled over and looked at me and unveiled the biggest smile. She knew what she'd raised. She knew her fighting spirit was alive and well inside me. As I read Morain's book, it's filled with her ability in a network. It reads like a dream team you'd want to have in your corner, like former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and then there's Willie Brown and Senator Dianne Feinstein and Governor Gavin Newsom and former Senator Barbara Boxer. And there was the fundraiser she sponsored as San Francisco District Attorney for Barack Obama when he ran against Bill Clinton. Kamala served as Obama's surrogate, delivering the San Francisco vote, while Clinton won all of California. Now, that's one powerful alliance. We often say on our podcast that failure leads us to resilience, and that has been the case for Kamala too. Here are three of her notables. One, her run for the presidency in 2020 is a major example of public failure. She launched her campaign with high hopes and gained early momentum, but by the end of 2019, her campaign faced financial struggles, internal conflicts, and difficulty maintaining support. Can you imagine the learning from something like that? No wonder she could hit the deck running this time. Two, as San Francisco's district attorney, Harris faced challenges and setbacks. Her office faced criticism over issues such as low conviction rates for certain types of crimes and allegations of misconduct in her handling of police investigations. Additionally, her refusal to seek the death penalty for the killer of a police officer in 2004 caused significant backlash. But I also think it has something to say about her decision making. May not agree with her decision, which at that time was super unpopular, not seeking the death penalty, but she did it. And I think that says a lot about her ability to make decisions, even unpopular ones. Three, as a U.S. Senator, Harris proposed several legislative measures that failed to pass. For instance, her efforts on criminal justice reform, particularly pushing the police reform in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, that faced significant opposition and ultimately did not achieve her desired results. We've also talked a lot about empathy on our show as a key component of leadership. And Kamala has been characterized as cold and even mean. In Morain's book, he recounts the story that Matthew D. Davis tells about his neighbor, Naomi Gray, an elderly Black woman who long had been involved in city politics and was a Harris supporter when she was elected district attorney in 2003. Naomi had a stroke and was hospitalized, and Davis called Harris and told her it would mean the world to Naomi if she would send a card. Harris asked, "Where are you right now?" And they made arrangements to meet at Naomi's room. Harris sat beside her and held her hand for 20 minutes. There were no crowds or potential voters or even the press, just a quiet hallway. Davis felt compelled to reveal the story in a Facebook essay. And there's got to be a lot of empathy and compassion when your stepchildren call you Mamala, or even your husband's ex campaigns for you. And there's her sister Maya, who is also an American lawyer, public policy advocate, and writer. Maya was one of the three senior policy advisors for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign's policy agenda, and she also served as chair of the 2020 presidential campaign of her sister, Kamala. According to Kamala, the duo have a bond that is unbreakable, as she told the Washington Post that all of the joyous moments in our lives, all of the challenging moments, all of the moments of transition, we have always been together. When Kamala married Doug Emhoff in 2014, Maya officiated the ceremony at a courthouse in Santa Barbara, California. Her daughter would read Maya Angelou's Touched by an Angel at the ceremony. One last thing before we close our episode today. If you haven't checked out our new store on our website, girltaketheleadpod.com/shop, please do so. I've made a card there. With brave wings, she flies. And it just seems like the perfect message for yourself or others in your life after listening to this episode. I think Kamala reminds us to be brave and courageous, like the butterfly on this card. I'll end this episode today with this last paragraph of the Morain's book in the epilogue. And he wrote, 2 days before the 2020 election, Harris posted a video on her Twitter page that opened with one of her famous go-to lines. Quote, I have in my career been told many times, it's not your time. It's not your turn. But let me tell you, I eat no for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you for listening today and taking a look at Brave Wings. We sure hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcast, tell a friend about us, or join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we've recently gone to YouTube Music where you can find a video of this episode. Here are 3 takeaways from our episode today. 1, Kamala Harris is breaking the mold for women when it comes to leadership. Her early foundation, being mother inspired, Berkeley in the 60s, set her on a course to be an advocate, to be empathetic, and have tremendous insights into politics. 2, Kamala has designed her own way. She's a blended family, a presidential run in 2020, and is an example of learning from failure and demonstrating resilience. And 3, one of Kamala's greatest strengths are her people skills. She can network, build influence. She's a charmer, and she's great at creating alliances. For our next episode, we'll have a guest, Lydia Citrion, author of the book, The New Rules of Influence: How to Authentically Build Trust, Drive Change, and Make an Impact. The dedication of her book instantly grabbed me. It read, to all of us who want to know that by the end of this crazy and wonderful journey called life, we mattered, we made a difference, and we left the world a better place. And who doesn't want that, right? So please join us again and talk to you soon. Bye.